Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. We are still your horror podcast that most of the time talks about horror films with 10 or fewer reviews. But every now and then we have a 30-minute episode. We call them our uncertified episodes. And that's when Donato and I talk about a relatively new release, something that's come out in the not too distant future. We get an opportunity to get some of that good SEO magic and maybe discuss how we feel about something that's going to be part of the cultural conversation for the year ahead. Donato is here. He is half dead or half alive from his South by Southwest travels. How are you feeling, buddy?
Glass half full. I'm not dead yet.
Okay, that's all that really matters. And if you're listening to this on our audio feed, I would encourage you to go over to our YouTube channel and check out the video version of this, because we're going to try and get a little bit better about recording video to go with the audio, at least for the uncertified episodes. Probably won't be asking our guests to go on camera anytime soon, but for the two of us, you'll be able to see us in all of our facial hair, bearded, Jaws t-shirty glory.
Yeah, I for those listening as well, the voice is a little raspy because, as every festival, I feel like I don't have to explain it more. Like when you go to a festival, it is just a whole lot of work, a whole lot of staying up late, and a whole lot of sleepless nights. So when I come home, I don't have a voice for like 3 days.
That's great. It just makes you sound like raspy and ready for radio. So you're in good shape, bud.
Is that what I have to do for radio? Just completely destroy my body for over a week? And okay, all right, cool. I didn't know that was the thing.
All right, so this week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the sequel to Ready or Not. It is called Ready or Not, Here I Come. The 2 is not in the title card on the film itself. And so I am of the opinion that the official formal name of the movie is Ready or Not, Here I Come, not Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. Can we agree on that going forward? Were we ditching the 2 because it wasn't in the title card?
Yeah, let's ditch the 2 because I feel like it's either Ready or Not 2 or Ready or Not Here I Come. And I have more fun with Ready or Not Here I Come.
I do as well. So it is in theaters this weekend. Hopefully folks have had a chance to check it out. And if not, let's give you a brief plot synopsis. When we last left our favorite bad luck bride, she had survived a deadly game of hide and seek with the Le Domas family. But before she can even finish her cigarette, Grace is pulled back into another deadly game with the surviving members of the council. Handcuffed to her estranged father, her estranged sister, that would be a very different movie. Her estranged sister, Faith, Grace must survive until dawn, again, against the combined forces of history's most powerful families. But this time, the world itself might be at stake. Ready or Not, Here I Come is a bigger and bloodier sequel to Radio Silence's 2019 breakout. But does that mean it's better? Let's discuss. Donato, I went back and I looked at your old reviews. You wrote the review for Ready or Not for that site that shall not be named, but you gave it 5 stars. So I have to imagine, as bullish as you may be on Ready or Not, Here I Come, it's still the lesser of the 2 for you.
Yeah, I mean, the way I keep describing it is, first with that context, because I absolutely did give Ready or Not 5 stars. It absolutely is one of my favorite horror movies since it has released. It's one of the only 5-star reviews I've written since its release. So that's the highest praise I can literally give. So the context for me this whole time has been, I think Ready or Not 2 is more of the same. But since I gave Ready or Not 5 stars, that more of the same carries entirely more weight than you might, think when someone says that. Because it is fun. I like it as an expansion on the first in the storytelling with the mythology and where it goes. I like it in the violent, eat the rich, but kill the rich this time, like all that stuff. Sure. And I like it for adding another character to the fold that gives Grace more than just another survival scenario for herself. Like, there is Kathryn Newton, there is the entire family dynamic. So you have that going on at the same time to, again, give it a little different flavor. But is it as good as the first? Not entirely, because I do think there is a little struggle with building the Grace and Faith relationship at first. Like, I feel like it's just very familiar. Like, we're going to throw an obstacle in here for Grace because we have to. And it doesn't really it doesn't hit me until a few minutes in, or maybe, more than a few minutes, where their banter is kind of like, I'd say more generic but it's still Kathryn Newton, Samara Weaving. So like, yeah, of course they're gonna get great with it eventually. I just feel like that took a little bit to get there. And yeah, there is a little more of the sameness to it where it would have been nice to just a little more, I guess, flourishing of the ideas and stuff like that. Where I know adding more families does change what exists. And I know that kind of like going the route of a new location and a new other things, like it does give us plenty of new. But again, it does feel like more of the same.
Sure. Well, I'm in the opposite boat as you because I gave the first Ready or Not, went back to my letterbox because I didn't review it. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. And the reason for that, yes, I know I'm wrong. I can see your facial reactions. Folks can watch you like squint your eyes a little bit at me when I dislike a movie that you liked. Part of the reason for that is that I don't think, look, I don't think that Ready or Not is a bad film, but I think there's an element of diminishing returns to it, which is that it is sort of a bit incredulous at its own premise, right? Like the idea of the film spends a lot of time being like, can this really be happening? Are all these family members really going to kill me? And yes, they are. Like we understood that as an audience, we understand it. It makes sense, perhaps, for Samara Weaving's character, for Grace to be surprised or disbelieving that this evil rich family is actually going to follow through on what they've been asked to do. But I think it drags the movie a little bit to me, where we've seen Eat the Rich and horror films, Most Deadly Game, those kind of things. Like we're familiar with the premise, and I think the film fights itself to get to that admittedly really really cool ending at the end. I do think that there's also an element with the original Ready or Not, which is that the fight scenes are not super varied. It kind of gets to a point where, I think that a good action movie, and this is why probably I like less action movies than most. I think there should be variety. I think there should be fast and slow. It's like a concerto, right? There's a fast section, there's a slow section. You have all of these elements and they need to be in harmony with each other. They need to be in dialogue with each other. And I didn't feel like that was as locked in for the original Ready or Not as I wanted. So part of the appeal for Ready or Not, Here I Come from me is honestly the character that Kathryn Newton plays gives that variety because there are different fight scenes. Like Samara Weaving is having different fight scenes than Kathryn Newton is having. There's sort of a standout sequence that I think of when I think of the movie, which is a parallel fight scene where Samara Weaving has been kind of temporarily blinded and is fighting another character who's been temporarily blinded, and that's very lighthearted and funny, and it's got a very kitschy musical cue. But then Kathryn Newton is basically playing out the Patricia Arquette scene from True Romance, where she's just getting beaten within an inch of her life and like refusing to lay down. And I've seen a few folks say the movie's meaner than its predecessor. It's got a meaner streak. It doesn't kind of work. That juxtaposition of those two tones in that one fight scene is why I like Ready or Not better, or Ready or Not Here I Come better, because it has more going on. It's trying different things, and it isn't trying things in service of a story that we all kind of know where it's going to end up. It really is much more these characters dialed up to 11. Let's bounce them off each other. It's got like the energy of like a kid's playing with action figures, setting them up across the room and shooting rubber bands at them. And I think in this instance for this franchise, that's the better story. It's kinetic storytelling. It's developing characters not through like backstory or plot, but through the way that they fight with each other and the action scenes that you've developed. And I really liked the energy of this one a lot more. I was much, much happier watching this because I think that it is goofier and sillier, and it kind of overcomes the hurdle of us being like, everybody's evil. Like everybody here has sold their soul to the devil. Like we don't need to fart around the premise anymore. Let's just have weird people with cool weapons be evil shit. And that's great.
I find it interesting that people find Ready or Not 2 meaner than the original, because I actually had more fun with this one. I think this does go a little bit more action horror campy, where on a rewatch of Ready or Not, like it's really just Grace getting the shit kicked out of her. It's not really like an action movie in my eyes almost anymore. Yeah. It's way more of like it's not fight scenes. It's Grace and everyone else just getting brutalized. Where this
more You're Next than like a traditional like battle royale type thing. Yes,
correct. Right. Where I think this one is an action horror comedy, whatever you're going to describe it as. But there are those elements, and I agree. Like I think this movie has a tremendous amount of fun with the varied personalities of the family's number one. I do like that a great deal. Like the Davenports are obviously the kind of stand-in for the Ladomus family, but then you
Mhm.
have the more flamboyant, Londoners. You have all these other people, like the litigious ones. Like you have a more Smoke and Aces feel to the
Yeah.
to the
Good
to
comp.
the villains, I would say. And then the action itself, they all have different methods that they like to use through violence, and whether that might be kind of a hatchet or a rocket launcher, like everything in between. I think that element is kind of like more inviting as a midnighter. Um, but the gore is still there, and like the brutality is still there. That Kathryn Newton scene, as she is just taking lick upon lick, like
Mhm.
it is hard to watch, and then you see that happen at the same time. You're laughing at this very very shticky, let's say, scene where Samara and another person have pepper sprayed themselves, and you have the greatest needle drop in the entire movie playing over as they can't hit each other, and yet it still is like graceful choreography. So Radio Silence, they get more ambitious here, and that's, I think, the biggest thing that I was worried about a little bit. Like
Mhm.
I trust in Radio Silence, I trust, but like, how were they going to go bigger? How were they going to build this out? And I think the way that you just have Mr. LaBelle now as this cult leader of a devil instead of just like dealing with one family, and what that means for the commentary on like, yeah, like the 1% like has sold their soul in a certain way, and it's not just, again, like one family in charge. It's, you can take one down, but the entire congregation is still up there, and like
Yeah.
that messaging and theming is good. So the fact that they were able to create a sequel that picks up right where Ready or Not left off, and they found a way to kind of make it like work, that alone to me was impressive, because it was like, how do
Yeah.
where do you go from the iconic cigarette smoking mansion on fire shot that Samara Weaving ends on with Grace? How does that continue? And the answer is Ready or Not too. Like they found the right way, in the same way that Black Phone, in my opinion, was able to strike a sequel that is, in my opinion, quite good from a
Yeah.
film that,
Better in my opinion.
exactly, and like do so with an ending that you're kind of like, well, where do you go from here? How do you do this? Like, how do you not feel repetitive? Give us an original story, all that stuff. I've made that comment in my review. I think it's very, very Black Phone 2-y in the way that it goes around the concept of its sequel.
Yeah. And I've also seen some folks compare this negatively, I think, to the John Wick franchise with the idea of like a high council and a seat and things of that nature. I like on the surface level, it is doing the John Wickness of blowing up a world and having secret societies, and maybe there's spin-offs in the future if they wanted to, whatever. But in my review that I wrote for certifiedforgotten.com, I compared this more to Smile 2, and we're talking about sequels that are better. Like, I think the original Smile I enjoyed. It's got a little bit of a mean streak to it. I think it's very dour. It's like very, very narrow in terms of the stakes and the scope of the type of story that it's telling. And Smile 2 is much more theatrical and silly. It is you good? You good? Okay. Smile 2 is bigger and broader and sillier, but it's a lot more about, I think, the filmmaking than the story. They're taking bigger swings, they have more budget, the ambitious nature of what they're doing, but more importantly, you've got Naomi Scott, who is just absolutely selling the hell out of that centralized performance. I like Smile 2 more, even though I think it's probably less of a grounded, or it's not even really a narrative continuation, because they truly don't give a shit about explaining anything behind the origin of the smile creature or whatever it is, the demon. They just kind of like executed a bigger scope than they did the first time around. And I think that that's something that I responded to in this film, is the idea of, I really think a lot of the plot, the world building stuff, is just a coat hanger. It's just something that you can like drape these cool set pieces, these big performances by Newton and by Weaving over, and like it just allows it to stand up, but they don't really care too much about anything else. It is just there to allow you to have like a sword fight with Olivia Chang, or a gun battle with Nestor Carbonell. Like, it's just there to let really good character actors do big fun things on the screen. And I think it executes that really well. And it also doesn't hurt that, everybody's favorite creepy little guy, Elijah Wood, gets to be a creepy little guy in this movie too.
Creepy little guy aficionado. That
Yep.
is, I think he's my favorite character, which is obviously a huge stretch because Grace is immaculate and like one of my favorite, I think Scream Queen is very, very fair to call her. So the fact that I just loved every time Elijah Wood was on screen, and I'm just going like, oh my God, like how are you selling this again? Again, the lawman of this movie, like the rule
Yeah.
maker and the one keeping things in line. And I love any kind of film that has a ridiculous battle royale-esque concept, but also like a gamesman or like someone in charge, and that being
Yes.
Elijah Wood here, keeping everyone by the books. Perfect. But I do want to go back to like Newton and Samara Weaving, because when it does work, and again, I do think it just takes a little while to get started for me, but like once they click, they click. There's just so much, like they are both two people I love seeing play in the genre, because Kathryn Newton is better with more, I would say, like quick wit, sarcasm, very like more humorous vibe about the way she goes about it, but then she can turn that into like this really sympathetic role. And like when she's getting brutalized, like you feel that so hard, like you see it
Mhm.
happening. And because of her character, like you feel the way that she is still trying to like rise from the ashes and bring herself out, and she can't. And then on the other side, you have Weaving, who is just, I continue to say, just one of the most badass, of these scenarios, like of the Scream Queens, Final Girls. Like she just has that vibe that, that she can take it, that she is a formidable force. And like, you never believe when she survives. You never believe when she's able to fight back. Sorry, you never not believe, saying that
Yes.
correctly.
Yes.
You never don't believe that she can do that stuff. So it's like, man, she is full force into that mode. And so anything like a Ready or Not or any other horror movie that she's been in where she kind of like goes the same route, I am completely in on it. And like that doesn't change here, of course. Why would it? Like she's playing
Yeah.
the same character. And it doesn't feel old. She's given more, whether or not the emotional stuff goes as deep as I think it should, she's given more to do in those conversations of trying to now like depend on someone. She was on her
Yeah.
own the first movie. Like that was the whole thing about it. She found the person that finally could like complete her. She could finally be a unit, and it almost killed her. It should have killed her. Now you have the family member who should have been there, who should be all these things, and she's pushing her away. So at least that duality is like existent there. And I think Weaving does play that how it needs to be played for this movie. So like it is an inversion on the first movie, and the more of the sameness is the more action elements. So, at least there goes pretty graphic in some moments. Whether
Yeah.
that's the giant laundry machine or the aforementioned rocket launcher, a few things, and the ensemble is what kind of brings it all together, because it's a Ready or Not movie, and now we have two in a row that we know that we're pretty much based on who is the family. It's the White Lotus effect of like who's the cast here. Like we're all waiting to see who the baddies are going to be. And like, David Cronenberg, it's like announced first, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
off the bat, like going to have some fun with this. And I think that goes through for the entire cast, whether it's one of the family members who, well, we should say you can only have one family member in the game at a time. So
Yes.
a fun little hook is seeing which family members enter the game first, and then which family members are stuck in a room watching and then can jump in once the first combatant is dead. So I really had fun with that element of some people maybe not wanting to be in the game and watching and
Yeah.
rooting for their family member because they're like, fuck, not me, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's the smartest bit of comedy that this film does, is to have the waiting room for the families. And there's a James Tinian the fourth, or Tinian, I can't remember how to pronounce it. Sorry, James, if you're listening. He has a new long-running series that's out called Exquisite Corpse, which is about a group of rich families that secretly run the world. They take over one small town in Middle America, and each of them has a proxy, which they have hired either like a prolific serial killer, a special forces person, somebody, a family member who's been training their entire life for this. And they get points for how many people in the town they kill, and also how many of the other hunters they kill, and also who's the last man standing. It's called Exquisite Corpses. Like any other of Tinian's things, it's going to take forever to get done with its arc, but it's about 8 or 9 issues in, and it's a lot of fun. And the thing is that in that comic book series, the families themselves don't participate. They're back and like watching it in like a fucking the Bellagio sports book or something like that. That is the experience that they're having. And I love that conceit of people with no skin in the game, right? That are just sort of commenting on something that other people are doing for them. It's great to see that happen here too, because A, most of the best jokes in the film come from that room or come from the interplay of Elijah Wood's attorney being in the room with the other family members and reacting to stuff in real time. Elijah Wood is completely the straight man in this movie, doesn't even do his trademark giggle, right decisions up and down the board. Good for him. But like one of the main character's brothers who really doesn't want to fight, a cousin who just thinks he's going to be drinking like tequila and then is enlisted. My personal favorite in the film, one of the guy's daughters who has a secret vendetta against Grace because she was secretly in love with the Ladomus guy before, and like shows up to fight in a wedding dress. There are so many delicious little bits of characterization there that I think are tied to the notion of understanding, if you want to expand the scope of your world, again, it's not about, for something like this, it's not about deeply plotted intricacies. It's about like, we got some fun characters doing some fun shit, and you can make it funny as long as it's based in the character development. You know how I feel about horror comedies. This is funny because the people in the movie are stupid and react to things in stupid ways. That's much funnier than the movie trying to manufacture comedy. It just has dumb people reacting to the fact that things aren't going the way that they expect it to, and it gets some really good laughs out of that.
And I mean, I also like there's one character who isn't even trying to kill Grace, and I think it's fair to talk about at this point. And I think Olivia Chang, like it's a very interesting kind of twist to say you have these Satanists who are so devout to LaBelle and, again, following the rules to a T, but also doing it barbarically. It's just a simple, I kill you, I get your seat, I take over. Like that is the easy way that most of these people understand it. But Olivia Chang's character willing to, well, first of all, going through the entire rule book, let's call it, and finding a loophole and being able to like stop a fight scene at first. Like, we think we are going to get the sword fight very quickly. And all of a sudden it's a character being like, no, I'm going to give you a way out. And Grace, of course, being like, no, I don't trust you. Right. Why would I trust you? Like,
also, really quickly, can I request that we refer to her as warrior star and icon Olivia Chang, since that is what I know her from and love her from. Thank you.
7,000%. I'm not going to say that every time, but that is implied.
Warrior star Olivia Chang. I will mumble it under my breath every time you say her name.
Got it. So warrior star Olivia Chang. But I also wasn't expecting that. It's easy to just do the hunt and stalk. It's easy to just unleash more characters, kill more people, follow the template. So the idea that Radio Silence immediately tries to like break their own formula, like that's the first thing they try to do. It doesn't happen late into the movie. It's one of the first interactions like Grace kind of has after the dance force, obviously, try to have their way with them. And they are, the dance force are the stand-in for the Ladomus family. Yes. Like they are the simple, carrying on the tradition. Tradition is good. We must murder. So it was refreshing to kind of see, even within the system, like if we're looking at it from a thematic purpose, like within the system, there are people who can change and they want to make that change. And maybe it is, hard to trust them, but they end up being right. And I like that quality of the movie.
Yeah. Well, they're all bad people, but they all are bad people who recognize that there are multiple ways to get what you want in this world. And it doesn't need to always be the bloodiest path. I think that there is, I think the character that Sarah Michelle Gellar plays is really interesting because they're all bad people. They've all sold their soul to the devil. but she's a pragmatist and she recognizes that there are different ways to get about that outcome. And I think the pragmatism of some of Warrior Star Olivia Chang, as well as Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think that I like that. I like that they're not all just killing for the sake of killing. And I think that is a counterpoint to Ready or Not, where everybody, runs the gamut of like, we have to do this to like, no, I'm not going to do this, but I'm actually going to do this. Everybody in this film that Grace is up against says, okay, like this is going to happen. Like the ring is going to go to my family and I'm going to do whatever it takes. But maybe it's not by blood in the literal term. Maybe it's by blood in the metaphorical term. And there is a moment at the end of the movie where maybe one of the like sharpest bits of political commentary I've seen in a hot minute. The idea that like what happens in the end could not have been predicted because they were like reasonable people would do this, and so they have an unreasonable person do something, and they're like, we didn't write the bylaws for it because we just never assumed this would happen. That's good shit. I was very pleased, very very pleased with that bit.
And also, you're like, oh, how can they outdo the blood explosions from Ready or Not?
Yes,
And
they
do. They do very much so, and it is a beautiful thing to behold, really. And you know what? Also, they save the goat.
Yes. Yeah. This movie passes Does the Dog Die? I don't believe there's any animal murder in this, as unbelievable as that may seem.
No, it does. But there is just that sequelitis just a tad, and a movie getting sequelitis that I gave 5 stars still means it's like a 4-star movie. Like I still enjoyed the hell out of this thing, and it is one of those scenarios where I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because I think the hurdle in the storytelling was always going to be this one. Like, okay, we did the Ladomas family. How does this exist on a wider scale? And now that they've cracked that code, I think there's every possibility for a third movie. I don't know how. Again, I think this is a scenario where everything is wrapped up, everything can be wrapped up if it wants to be.
Yeah.
But I think with the ambition that Radio Silence sold here, I would be curious to see what they did with the third movie, because there's no way it's just another More Families thing like that. I don't think Radio Silence, if they came back to this sandbox, would adhere to that. Like, hey, let's just make it bigger again, but maybe it's across a whole city now and it's with a bunch of families or something. I don't think that would be it. I think there would be another unique inversion on the story they're telling, or how they would have to, like, I would want to see that.
I would love to see them take more of an anthology approach with it. It feels like you've built a world where you can support stories of normal people versus shitty rich people in a lot of different ways. And the first one, again, like heavy-handed in its commentary. This one's just like, do you want to kill a rich person with a bazooka? Do you want to shoot somebody in the chest? Who's secretly sending millions of people to their death every single day. There is a lot of righteous anger in these movies, sincere in the first, silly in the second, that I think can carry it over to a lot of different settings, a lot of different characters. So yeah, I there are some franchises where I'm like, you're not doing anything wrong enough for me to say, hey, don't make another one. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, just make as many of these as you can. We'll see if it wears out. For me, the John Wick movies eventually kind of got to a point where I was like, I think I'm ready to set this down. But I think that maybe there's a movie or 2 movies left in the Ready or Not franchise before I'm like, okay, this feels a little played out. Y'all go do something else. All right, that's our conversation about Ready or Not, Here I Come. Donato, you have published a lot of film criticism coming out of South by Southwest. So where do folks go online to stay connected to you?
You can follow me, as always, at Donatobomb, DONATOBOMB. And that is mainly going to be Blue Sky, Instagram, and Letterboxd. But yeah, all my writing, or I would say 99% of my writing from South by, is on Daily Dead. So you can go over there, check out all my reviews of horror movies and horror adjacent, or movies that kill people, because I got a little I got a little shifty with the whole Daily Dead name, and I reviewed movies like Normal and Mike and Nick and Alice, and a few other action flicks, because there's dead bodies. What do you mean? And they were just enjoyable. So
yeah,
they're there. Go check the reviews out. More are still coming. I have like 5 more screeners to watch this weekend, so might add a few more reviews to the list if anything tickles me the right way.
I love it. As for myself, mostly just Blue Sky, Monogoal at bluesky.social. You can also find my writing primarily by going to www.certifiedforgotten.com. If you want to read what I wrote about Ready or Not, Here I Come, it's available on the website. Just today, I also published a review of 1,000 Women in Horror, which is a very fun documentary now playing on Shudder that you should check out as well. But if you do nothing else, go to www.certifiedforgotten.com/newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter, and every week we will send you the best in our new film criticism and essays from our contributors, as well as things around the world of horror that strike our fancy. I hope you sign up next week on the podcast, depending on how schedules work out. Donato is going to be joined by a special guest to do a full recap of his South by Southwest horror favorites, which means you want to tune in, you want to download that episode because you want to hear what he has to say about Hokum, which nobody will shut up about in a way that makes me very, very happy.
And I'm not going to either.
I love that. I love that. So subscribe, like, and subscribe all the podcast platforms. Tune in next week, hear Donato talk about Hokum, and hopefully we'll see all y'all very soon.